Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for coming out tonight. I'm Dan Fienberg from The Hollywood Reporter, but you are really here to see our special guest. Give it up for Mr. Bob Odenkirk.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you all. What a great place to be. Man, those seats look comfortable. This looks like the most comfortable theater ever.
So that last line is, of course, one that fans have been waiting for to some degree for the entire run of the series.
For sure.
You know that that's the episode, the line that the episode is building to, the season is building to, the series is building to.
Yes.
How do you approach a line like that?
Well, I mean, everything that came before that moment, right? The performance that he's doing in the hearing room, and then this moment with the love of his life, where he reveals he was being dishonest in a kind of deep way, is the challenge. And then saying that line is just fun. It's all good, man. And I have said it before on the show. We did it in season 1 or 2 where he's doing this con and he uses the name and talks about what it, where he got it and all. And so that was just pure fun to say it. And honestly, I come from comedy. I spent 25 years making a living as a comedy writer and performer, but mostly writer. And in comedy, there's a lot of reward happening all the time. If it isn't, you're failing. And you really know if you're succeeding because the audience is laughing a lot, And in drama, one of the hardest things for me has been to just go out on a limb with a story or plot and an emotional journey and trust that an audience will be engrossed enough to hang in there with you as it incrementally shifts and changes. And so it's really rewarding for me to hit a moment like that and know we got somewhere. We landed somewhere. Now, I said this to Peter a few weeks ago because we were having we always analyze our scenes, and we're shooting season 5 right now, and we're shooting episode 9 of season 5. We've been through an awful lot. It's going to be our biggest season ever, season 5. And I mean, I'm not just saying that. I mean, it's visually, production-wise, the biggest, and the journey has exploded now. After that moment, then it's, cut loose now. And but yet still, without there being any backtracking, because there is a certain amount of like dramatic sort of journey forward and back and journey forward and back. And they did that with Walter White too, where he almost seems like he's going to get out, he wants out, and then he moves forward a little. And then there comes a point where he's just moving forward. He's clearly not going to get out. And that's kind of where we are now. He's just moving forward on this idea of, I'll be a character named Saul Goodman. I'll work on a low level. I won't try to compete with the hoity-toity, highly ethically presented, lawyers. I will be a low-class, grubbing, sleazeball lawyer, and I'll be the fucking best at that. I'll be so good. And so we got there, and yet still, there's still a little Jimmy and Saul. Jimmy's the younger, idealistic character that we met in Better Call Saul, and there's always been Saul in Jimmy. But there's still a little of that guy. I don't know if in Breaking Bad we never saw his conscience in play. I guess I would say we did once or twice. He told Walter White once, if I were you, I'd consider getting out of this game. I'm not saying the line right, but that was interesting that he said that, because Saul, he didn't give a shit what happened to Walter White. He wanted to make money off this guy. So for him to take that moment and say, maybe you want to quit, was weird. It was a weird, why does he care? So it showed that he maybe had some humanity in him that we'd never seen. And then there was a moment, the most impactful moment where you saw some depth to Saul was he was with Jesse and he had dropped off something for Brock and the mother. What was her name? What's her character's name? Anybody got IMDb? Anna? Andrea? Anybody? Am I right? Yeah, okay. And Saul does he drops off whatever the item is, I think money or something, and then he sits in the car with Jesse and he goes, "You should go see them." And he's like, "What?" "You should go in there." And he sort of makes Jesse do this thing that, why does he give a shit? He just uses people. That's all Saul does in Breaking Bad. But there's these two moments, really, that's the only ones I can think of, where he does something that isn't self-serving and suggests that, okay, there's a conscience to this guy, there's more to him. They weren't big moments, but they were strange. As an actor, they were like, why is he doing that? Why does he care? And so there's always a little Jimmy and Saul, always a little Saul when he's Jimmy. And I said that to Peter, and he agreed. He said that's the case. And then we got into an argument over, not an argument, but a battle that I'd still like to win over a way I played a moment.
Well, my favorite.
Because sometimes I'm playing Saul, right? And I want to slip a little Jimmy moment in there, and have him show some traction and some humanity and some doubt and because I feel like once he hits Breaking Bad world, he knows who he is. That's it. Fuck you. I'm taking what I can take from every person that walks in this door. I am going to use them, and I'm going to get whatever I can from them. And if they benefit in the process, that's fine. That it would be a win-win, that's fine. But this is about me, nothing else. So anyways, I like when there's a little Jimmy. So a few days ago, I'm writing an email after a day of shooting, and I'm like, you have to ask yourself. I know I'm phrasing it in such a way that it'll corner him. Is there still a little Saul, a Jimmy and Saul? Because if there is, then you have to go with my performance, the way I wanted to do it, because that's Jimmy inside Saul. But if you're saying it's just Saul, he's one-dimensional now, then yeah, go with your thing, yeah. But I didn't say it like that, but I did. You know what I mean? Like, you think of ways to put it that make the person go, oh, well, no, I mean, yeah, no, he's still a rich character. Oh, okay, well, then I guess, all right, hey, it's your choice. Either way you want to do it. And then do it the way I performed it. I performed this line with essentially a sense of uncertainty, and it was not written that way. It was written as a statement. But I felt like he's struggling with this moment. And what are you doing? Yeah, it's not written as a question. I know. Yeah, no, I know. It's just, and I kept doing it, which you don't do. I don't do, and we don't do on our show. And then I said, okay, I'm sorry. Let's do it again. I'll go again. Like take 7. And I did it one more time. And I was really like tired. So I didn't have the presence of mind to make the argument in the moment of what the instinct was inside me or whatever. But that night, and then I did it their way for like 5 takes. And then that night I'm like driving home and I'm like, no, I was right. My performance, that choice, that was organic. That was who he was in that moment. That made sense. But why? And it occurred to me like, he's asking himself this question and it comes out of his mouth. He's thinking it and it comes out of his mouth, which is essentially what they did right, that his thoughts just burbled out. And then I wrote a long email that hopefully will make them like use my choice. And then if they use theirs, hopefully feel bad. I'm pretty good at this shit. And I'll tell you why. Here's why I'm good at it. Because I spent most of my career as a producer and writer, right? So you're sitting in a room and you have a way that you think the moment should go, and a director, I directed a couple features, and you don't want to just argue your side, because then you're just equal to the person you're arguing with, right? They have an opinion and you have an opinion. That's just two people. You can have different opinions. You always want to sound like, you almost want to make it sound like you agree with them, but some other, I don't know, something, some other ghost wants this other third way that you're arguing, and you don't. It's just a way of arguing that hopefully subverts people's egos, tricks them.
So now that last conversation he has with, where he's basically removing the mask. Mm-hmm. He's saying that was all a fraud. That was all a lie. That was all me getting to my purpose. Was that pure Saul?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Pure Saul, and it was challenging, and I'll tell you why. It was written as me and Ray Kim sitting across from each other, talking to each other, and we've had this problem in this show before. I said, we both say, I can't look her in the face, lie to her, and not see what's in her eyes. Both the characters just naturally are emotionally intelligent. I mean, Saul is, if there's anything he is, he's watching and he's reading the room all the time. And she's obviously devastated by the speech he gave, and then devastated to hear it was a con job. And she was conned. So we were like, we can't look each other in the eye and do this whole thing. I would stop at some point and go, are you okay? Did you buy that shit? I would see it. So then it was an alteration done on the day of shooting that they're walking down a hallway and I'm not looking her in the eye and I'm just excited about what happened, and the audience can see her face, but I'm not looking at her face because I'm too excited about what just happened. And then when we finally do look at each other, then I'm telling her, you were right. It was you, which is so great, because then it's like, she did this? She caused that lie to happen? It was because of her that I was inspired to do that? Now she really can't speak up, because like, yeah, I guess I did say it's about Chuck. You got to show your feelings about Chuck. You got to say you feel terrible. They worry. They wonder who they're dealing with. And now the other aspect, I would say, in defense of my character, and what happens is you start to love your character over time. And I don't like Saul Goodman. I've an interview on my first season. I don't even know if I was on Fargo, so it must have been after the first season, but I was talking to a British interviewer about Better Call Saul, and he goes, no, if you were at a party and Saul Goodman was there, would you talk to him? And I go, no fucking way. It didn't take me a second. I would smell that guy across the room. I wouldn't go near him. But now, after playing this guy for years and all the shit he's been through, then you start to go like, oh, come on, he's not so bad. He's got a reason. There's a reason he feels that way. And you just get defensive, and you want... and I would argue that I feel that when he does this thing with the letter, the feelings it's very much an acting moment. He's acting. He does feel deep feelings about his brother. He does. And he's using them to con these people. And so it's honest, but it's not. But that's just maybe just me wanting to defend this guy. And you do get to that place, and it's hard because the writers... You know, look, we've talked about this more recently as this character goes off the rails in season 5. I mean, really off the rails. And you go like, oh, come on. Does he need to be this duplicitous, or that's crazy? And my friend Michael Mando, who's plays Nacho, and is an amazing actor and a deep actor and a deep thinker about character and acting, said to me, because I was struggling with this moment, and he goes, Bob, it's his amygdala. Whatever, like the deep part of his brain that's like an animal that isn't consciously thinking of the consequences of what he's pursuing and doing, and just is crazy inspiration and awe and ugliness comes out of there, and he can't fight it. And I thought he was right. I thought that was a good explanation for that moment and some of the things that the character does. And I would say probably Walter White too, right? Some of those things are like just this deep psychic wound that's shrieking and making him turn a corner that's just fucking nuts, you know?
Well, I like that this guy, in different circumstances, that he is an actor, and sometimes he's a very good actor. I think with the appeals board, he's an excellent actor. Sometimes, though, I don't think he's a very good actor at all. And I love the scene at the graveyard where at one point, I believe you actually say boo-hoo. And that's wonderful.
Now listen. That I did. Guys, come on. No one's ever said boo-hoo. That was the greatest thing. That made me laugh so fucking hard. And I just I'm like, I'm going to try to say boo-hoo. So that if you're listening, you're like, did he say boo-hoo? But also do it in such a way that, like he's doing. If you're 10 feet away, you're like, that guy's really crying. I mean, he's broken up. But there's some pretty pure comedy stuff that we get to do. The dynamic range of the writing in Better Call Saul is crazy. The fact that you get to do a funny, purely funny, almost silly sketch comedy level almost moment. You can't go too far, but you can go pretty damn far. And in those moments, I trust the writers and director. And I say to them, if I go too far, just tell me, but I'm going to push this thing as hard as I can. I really want to. It makes me smile. It makes my day. And so, yeah, I said boo-hoo. In a fucking scene where a person is crying. Come on. Try to pull that off someday.
Well, but then
I love the scene where you were crying. Did you say boo-hoo?
It's great because there's a legitimate sob before it. And so when you rewind it, you're like, wait, maybe I wasn't hearing the right thing. Maybe it was just that and I was confusing it. And then there's a very clear boo-hoo.
That's exactly what I was shooting for. You got to watch it twice to catch the boo-hoo.
But then
I love doing that. And then eating, I don't know, whatever they thought it was. When people are just distractedly eating is so funny. They're not listening to what they're saying, and they're just like, I don't know what it is, sugar rush is happening. Shoving that bear claw in my mouth. And, I try not to eat bear claws, but if it's written into a scene, you got to eat it. And just, they did actually have to tell me to don't eat so much bear claw. Because I was, well, the fucking guy, did you see that? Because it was fun to do. Yeah.
Well, this is also a show, though, that is so visually distinctive and meticulous in its visual style, especially when you get the episodes that Vince Gilligan directs, but really episode to episode. How does that meticulous precision work with your personal desire to do improv and to sort of spin things out and to try different things?
Well, I lose. Mostly I lose that battle, and that's okay. I very early on, in fact, in Breaking Bad, I came to this thing, and I came from comedy, and I came from sketch comedy where, people often said, you guys improvise in Mr. Show, which was my sketch show with David Cross, and the truth was we didn't improvise, sketches, but as the show, but You could definitely take off in a moment and add a moment and twist it around and have fun with it for sure. It's sketch comedy. But I came to Breaking Bad and I could see how meticulous and detailed it was, and I could see one thing that happened was I got the script, and I thought it was a lot of talk from Saul, who talks a lot, and I thought, well, when we shoot this, by the time we shoot this, they will have cut this monologue down to 3 lines, because that happens in comedy usually. It's 2 lines, 2 lines, 3 lines, 2 lines, 1 line, 1 line. It just pops around, right? So I hadn't read a lot of dramatic scripts, and I just thought, that's just going to get cut way down. So I waited to memorize it because I figured there's no point in memorizing this. There's no way I'm going to talk that much. So I think I shot on a Tuesday, and it was a Thursday that I got the blue pages, and 1 word was changed. A day was changed from like Tuesday to Thursday. And I was like, oh shit, I got to memorize this thing. And I was very much out of my element. And I watched a little of the show, 10, 15 minutes of it. The show was not a hit. Breaking Bad was not a hit or anything like a hit. We were all very lucky that they ordered a 2nd season, and we were all very lucky that they ordered a 3rd season. And I just thought, I think they want me to do it the way it's written, and what if I tried to learn it verbatim? And I also noticed that Saul said things in weird ways. He used phrases in ways, he talks in ways I don't talk. And there's an instinct in people to go, let's simplify this or make it more like something I would say. And I thought right away, no, let's make it something I wouldn't. Let's be a character that isn't me. So let's phrase that exactly the way it's phrased in this monologue. And so I committed to trying to do it just verbatim, and then I noticed that that's actually how that show was done. Everyone was doing that. People didn't say, oh, it'd be easier if I said this. Nobody says that ever. Nobody says it'd be easier. It's not about let's make it easy for you. But it's a really cool thing to go, I want to do it exactly as written. Now, I got to say I don't. Especially because he talks so much, but I try to. I really do try to say it exactly as written with the commas and the stutterings, exactly what they wrote, and not anything different, even if it's kind of the same thing. And again, I don't do it, but I try, and that's my goal every time. And I think it's cool because it makes a guy who I wouldn't talk like that. Yeah.
Did they change the approach at all when it went from being Breaking Bad, where your character was supporting, to suddenly focusing on you?
No, they didn't change it at all. Now, I do engage a lot with the writing and the script, and part of that is because I've been a writer, and they over time they really do seem to respect my point of view on things. But also it's because I've gotten to know the show and I know what they're doing. So I'm better at understanding what they're doing and maybe talking about maybe better choices that could be made. And so I get a lot of respect from the writers, and I'm thankful for that. But in the end, I'm always going to try to do what they write. And every season there's 2 or 3 things that I'm asked to do that feel like a leap. And those are those amygdala moments that Mando was pointing out to me. And I'll often struggle with them. I'll often talk to the writers about them, sweat it for a while, and then go, you know what? You do this, you say this, because that's what he says. It's not what you would do. Stop defending this guy. Stop trying to make him more logical. It's weird. I want him... I want to take some of this writing and these choices that he makes and go, don't do that. Come on. You're a good guy. Don't do that. You don't need to do that. Just be patient with life. Just be patient with the world. You'll get there, which is insane. That's not drama. You know what I mean? It's like Hamlet, put the skull down. It's calm down. Just calm down. Anyway.
Well, are you surprised that you've sort of come to have that almost sympathy for him? Because he was not a sympathetic character when he started off.
Not at all. One of the two things I said to Vince and Peter when we met at the Chateau Marmont, loved that. It was great fun. To talk about Better Call Saul as a series. We talked about a lot of things. It was a general conversation. But I said two things. One, guys, I'm old. I was 50 at the time. It's not that old, but it's... my point was, I can't play the guy when he's 28, 25. You kind of can because of CGI and stuff, but not for long. A few minutes on screen. So I was just saying, keep that in mind. I'm not vain in that way. So whatever that means to you, please don't try to make me pretend to be too much younger than I am. And don't worry about my feelings because I'm just telling you, I know how old I am. And so see if you can shift the story to a place where I can play it. And the second thing I said is we got to make this guy likable. And they fully agreed with that one. They fully agreed that is a challenge. Saul was super fun to watch in Breaking Bad. He was comic relief. Everyone else in that universe was going to die from cancer or a gunshot. Which would get them first? Everyone was in mortal danger at a certain point, except this one guy. So life was a big joke to him, and he made jokes, and he manipulated people, and who gives a shit? I'm just trying to make money here. And he's in danger, and he's in danger, and she's in danger, but I'm not. It's arm's length. And then there came a point where he was, but, he was fun to watch, but he was a rat, and he's not a good guy. And so, yeah, if you want to write a series about him, you got to make him likable. And I think they did an amazing job of digging into his past. I did have to play younger, and I've done my best. And I thank the audience for being, I think the audience, there's a point where they're going to draw the line for anybody. But to some extent, if you're wrapped up in the drama, I'll be curious how this movie, The Irishman, works. I've enjoyed the trailer, and I was not bothered by this de-aging that they did on De Niro, and I thought he looked great. I've seen some comments were like, oh, it's obvious that they did. I don't see it. I think he looks like a younger person. He's not 20. And I think it looks great. And I feel like you get swept up in drama, and you don't. If the drama's strong enough, you don't care. I know he's playing younger. It's fine. I'm watching this story, and I care about the character. And so I think that we get some leeway there.
Well, when the show was initially announced, it was announced as a comedy, and I feel like you even have some memory of it being announced as a half hour, though I'm not sure that's...
No, we talked about it. And at that same dinner or lunch at the Chateau, they were saying, could it be a half-hour comedy? And the thing they seem most interested in is something we didn't do that I still think would be interesting, which is a procedural. So it's a 1-hour procedural where every week Saul has a different skeevy client, and he settles their case out of court. He's a lawyer who never goes to court. And I think that's a cool idea. I'd like to see that. He just manipulates and negotiates and knows every judge and knows every other lawyer and knows their weak points and figures out ways to protect his clients or save their ass without ever stepping foot in court.
Now, going back to this episode that we just watched, the opening karaoke scene, it is a very courageous piece of singing on your part.
I am a terrible singer.
How does Jimmy's singing compare to yours?
oh yeah, I'm as bad as him, or he's as bad as me, or whatever. However you want to put it, we both suck. But I've always loved singing in sketch comedy because I'm so bad and can't carry a tune. And essentially what I do is I do my best. And then I think that's the funniest, because if I tried to sing badly, I think it would look that way. But since I'm just trying to sing as well as I can, and I know it's horrible, there's kind of a great, the audience feels it. They can feel that it's sad. And that, to me, is funny. But yeah, and then, of course, Michael McKean can really sing. I am so happy that Michael is nominated for an Emmy for his wonderful performance in that role. And you know, I don't think Michael's ever been nominated for an Emmy before. And he's done so much wonderful TV and film, and he's a great actor and a great stage actor. And I wrote him a note when he got nominated, and I'm a bit lazy at times. And I thought, he doesn't care about awards, come on. He's a purist and all. And I go, I know you don't give a shit, but I'm glad you're nominated for an Emmy, and you deserve this, and And he writes back, are you kidding me? I'm thrilled. I can't believe it. I'm so happy. I didn't know he'd never been nominated. It's a crime.
He wasn't nominated for season 3 was already a crime.
Oh, yeah. So
which is more nerve-wracking, karaoke with the lead singer of Spinal Tap or 7th inning stretch at Wrigley?
Oh, 7th inning stretch. There's a lot of people watching Better Call Saul, but I don't have to see their faces while I'm doing it. When you're up there in that booth and you look out and there's like 40,000 people going, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. But the good thing about Take Me Out to the Ball Game, it's a very forgiving song. It's not a song. It's a chant. It's a chant. You can chant it. You can say it, and you'll get away with it. It's a lot of people looking at you doing something. And the throwing the pitch is almost worse. Is so presumptuous to be out there on the mound. Hey, this will be fun. What am I doing? I don't deserve to be out here. It's the worst.
So I want to get to a few questions from the nice people in the audience.
Let's do.
Campbell, like the soup, asks, was there any discussion about Jimmy's backstory while filming Breaking Bad, whether that be his relationship with Chuck or really anything that we learned on the show?
None. Not a bit. Not at all. I'm shocked at everything they cooked up. The fact that Vince, when I did the scene with Walter White in the office, and there's a long run where I'm introduced, the character's introduced. It's not the first scene I did on Breaking Bad. The first scene was the commercial that you saw on TV, but it was the second or third. It wasn't. It was very early on. Somebody from the crew made a joke. Can I get a job on the sequel after I did a run? And everyone laughed. And Vince, the next year, said to me, I was getting some water in the office behind the studio, and he goes, hey, man, do you think there's a show in Saul? Because I think there is. I think there might be. And I mean, my honest answer was no. But, I mean, if you got a brain like that, offering, thinking, considering writing you a series, like, I said, hey, if you do. And that's what I said every time, and it came up every year. Every year he or Peter would say, you think there's a show in this guy? I think there might be. Every year. Instead, I didn't want to look like like I needed it. And I kind of didn't. I mean, I have a credibility as a writer and producer and stuff that I almost said director. But that I can generate work for myself, and I would never want to put pressure on a creative person. I need your, come on, you said you'd write me a show. I would always say the same thing. If you think there is, it's up to you guys. If you guys think there is, then I think there is. And it's really true. I mean, I also said, I'm not going to help you. Essentially, I won't help you figure this thing out. You guys do it or don't. No pressure from me. But partly because, I mean, I just never wrote drama. And I think I've gotten so that I feel a little more, I'm more confident in the structure of it and the pacing of it and where it can go and what it looks like on the page. I've definitely gotten more confident in knowing it. But I still think it's a big leap there to get into that and try to write it and all and figure it out. And so I always stayed away from it and let the pros do the work.
Amanda Martin writes, what challenges have you faced playing the same character for so long?
Yeah, first of all, a lot of people, when they ask that question, they mean Saul for 4 years on Breaking Bad and then Jimmy for 5 years. And I just don't. Saul was, guys, I might have done 20 or 23 or something episodes of Breaking Bad. I popped in and popped out. I'd fly in, shoot my thing, and come back that next night. It didn't feel like a big thing to me. I didn't really consider myself part of the core cast. That was, to me, Brian and Aaron and Anna and Betsy and Dean. I felt very much like a guest character actor. And then there was, as I shared with you, there were really only 2 moments where Saul showed some dimension that I could find in Breaking Bad. So Jimmy McGill and all the things they wrote for Better Call Saul was like a whole new thing to me. So for me, I've only been playing him for 5 years. And it doesn't feel like as long as everyone sort of thinks it is. And I was also so busy with other projects in the years I did Breaking Bad that it wasn't like my main focus. And so it wasn't as big a thing to me as it looks like in retrospect. Yeah.
Skylar James writes, Breaking Bad was like a firecracker each episode. Better Call Saul is like waiting for a long stick of dynamite each season.
Yeah.
Which style do you think is most attractive for this character?
Oh, well, without a doubt, the long stick of dynamite works for Jimmy. Now, I'd like to address that at the core. First, I agree completely with what she's saying. Saul and Better Call Saul could never have happened without Breaking Bad, and I don't mean that in the obvious way. But Breaking Bad was so fun and so rewarding and so it tuned you in to a kind of watching of drama that then the writers then used that strength in the audience to get them to tune in even more. So Breaking Bad happens, right? And you watch a show where there's an eyeball floating in water for, you don't know what the fuck it means for 9 episodes. You're seeing this fucking thing. But you know at that point in watching Breaking Bad that everything means something. It'll all pay off because of what they did in the first season, the second, and the third. And then when the eyeball pays off, you're like, okay, I got to watch every frame of this I have to watch because, yeah, that paid off huge and was amazing and blows my mind that it was the teddy bear of the kid whose dad, is the air traffic controller. It's just like, and then it lands in Walt's pool and it trained the audience to just focus in. And then Peter and Vince wisely said, okay, we got all these people out there. They know that we care on this level. Let's go even deeper. Let's take them even subtler. And they write this show that I can't imagine it working if you didn't already understand how Breaking Bad worked and why it mattered and how rewarding it could be to watch closely and slow down. And if they hadn't shown everyone that, I don't see how you could have, even though I think the show works on its own, and I've had people come up to me and say, I've never seen Breaking Bad, but I like Better Call Saul. Not many people, but some, here and there, it happens. And it just would never, you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. You couldn't do this show if that show hadn't happened and worked so well. We're very lucky, but also smart on Vincent Peter's part to not just make more of that thing that everyone likes so much, but let's go even deeper and challenge ourselves,
And I'll let Daniel here have the last question. What advice would present-day Odenkirk tell, I can't tell if it's going to be 20-year-old or 30-year-old Odenkirk. 30-year-old Odenkirk.
So 30 years old, Saturday Night Live behind me, just moved to LA, wanting to do interesting comedy. My heroes were Albert Brooks and Chris Guest. And I don't see drama acting happening. But I'll tell you, the person who needs advice is the 46-year-old Bob Odenkirk, because he's in debt and has 2 kids. He needs some support and talking to. The 30-year-old doesn't have kids, has all this money that he never spent from Saturday Night Live, has a lot of opinions about comedy, he's cocky, enjoying LA and the weather. He doesn't need a fucking thing, that guy. He needs a kick in the teeth, kick in the ass. But when you've had a nice run, as I've gotten to have in the last few years, it's very easy to say things, platitudes and encouraging things, with the thought of a person where you were, maybe where you weren't finding your way so easily and financially struggling, and it's easy to, I tell you, yeah. So I say, first of all, Bob Odenkirk, who needs some advice, is 46 years old, and he's had like 20 pilots die, and some of them made it to pilot, some of them just made it to script. And, out of those 10 that were shot, 3 of them were good. And in the landscape of today, with more voices, more platforms, more smaller audiences being appreciated, 3 of those shows would have gone to series. They definitely would have, no question. And the other 7 didn't deserve to, and 5 of them were just total shit. But the point is, I even that guy, inside me, I had a feeling that I don't know where it comes from. I have no right to it. I don't come from a showbiz family. I'm from Naperville, Illinois. My dad made business forms. My mom has watched 3 movies in her life, or she's watched Song of Bernadette 3 times. I always had a little bit of faith that it could be okay if I just kept an open mind, tried not to get bitter. It's hard to fight frustration and jealousy and bitterness. It's very hard. And some of it is justified, but you still have to let it go. You have to let it go. And one thing that I think makes this little bit of faith justifiable is, I think, a truth about showbiz. Even back then, when there were 4 networks and not all this streaming and not 600 scripted shows, even back then, new things are rewarded in our business simply for being new. The reward may not go too long or run that deep, but they do get noticed, they get rewarded, and that alone generates people looking for new things. And so that you can always have some faith that is a real thing in this business, and that alone will make work happen and make the possibility for you to have another fresh opportunity come along that you don't see today, that could be coming tomorrow or a few months from now or 3 years from now.
Well, thank you all for coming, and thank you to Bob Odenkirk.
Thanks.